Peacock fuels your true crime obsession with exclusive new originals like John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise.
He said to me, clowns can get away with murder.
Dr. Death, the undoctored story.
This guy's dangerous.
And Epstein's shadow, Ghislaine Maxwell.
She inherited Jeffrey Epstein's secrets.
There was this whole other world going on.
Plus the most bingeable crime series, Buried in the Backyard and Snapped. And with the Dateline 24/7 channel that's always on.
Did you want her dead?
You can't not obsess. Sign up now at peacocktv.com.
Now is the chance to use reliable energy to grow your money with the Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. Our new investment product offers competitive returns, no maintenance fees, and flexible online access to your money. Make the reliable investment in reliable energy. The Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. To find out more, go online to reliabilityinvestment.com. That's reliabilityinvestment.com.
Support to you for It's Usually Hello is brought to you by Manscaped, who just so happens to be the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. You know what I mean? They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide. Join the movement for all your below-the-waist grooming needs. Everybody knows what it's like when you're trying to keep yourself clean or keep yourself special, you know, for that big night out. Just say you have to be going to a big concert, say, I don't know, AC/DC stadium show. There's about 6 of you going away. You know that, right, something's going down tonight, so I'm going to trim my hell's bells. Use the wrong thing, you're going to end up cutting your balls and you're going to be on the highway to hell, if you know what I mean. One of my hilarious jokes there. But that's why Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. The Manscaped engineering team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hair trimmer ever created. It's called the Lawnmower 3.0. Their third generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to advanced skin safe technology pioneered by Manscaped. And when I tell you this is premium, I actually mean this is premium. The battery will last up to 90 minutes, so you can take a longer shave. You gotta play it safe, you don't want to speed through that shit, cut one of your balls off. It's waterproof technology, so you can groom in the shower. It helps clean up easier. And one of the coolest features is the LED light, which illuminates grooming areas for a closer, more precise trimming. They've also upgraded to 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. And let's not forget about the charging stand. Show off your mower loud and proud, because this intelligently designed stand is a convenient charging dock powered by USB. And if you're listening to me speak right now, and I hope you are, I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself. Trim that drunk of yours. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code HUGHY at manscaped.com. That's HUGHEZY at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. And just as a little quick reminder, get 20% off and free shipping when you use the code HUGHY at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com using the code HUGHY, HUGHEZY. And thank you for the sponsorship, and on with the show. This fantastic 5-star, unbelievable, history-changing episode of It's Usually Hello has been sponsored by Blue Chew. Guys, let's be honest. In my opinion, 2020 going into 2021 has been a hell of a year. If you know what I mean, right. Personally, I feel like I've aged 10 to 12 years over the last 12 months and grown. And if you're like me, you're feeling your age more than you used to, especially in the bedroom, if you know what I mean. It's time to snap out of it. Spring is here, and it's time to get sprung with Blue Chew. Boing. That's not a sound effect. That's just one of my incredible skills. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew tablets help men achieve harder and stronger erections to combat all forms of ED, which is erectile dysfunction, by the way, you floppy penises. Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor office, no awkward conversations about your small penises, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy, thankfully, and it ships right to your front door in a discreet package. The process is simple. You sign up at bluechew.com, BLUE, like the colour, chew, like the chew.com. Consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription in days. And the best part, it's all done online. Blue Chew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. You don't like swallowing pills like quite a lot of us? No problem here. Blue Chew's sildenafil and tadalafil tablets are chewable. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA. Thank you! And they prepare and ship direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy. So if you can benefit from extra confidence when it comes time to perform, visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And here's the best thing. We've got a special deal for It's Hugely Hello listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code HELLO at checkout. All you gotta do though is just pay the $5 in shipping. That's bluechew.com with the promo code HELLO to receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring our podcast, and on with the show. Want to buy wrestling merch but don't want to buy the cheesy or childish stuff the WWE puts out? Well, Collar and Elbow is the company for you. Collar and Elbow was founded on the traditional values of professional wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product intended to connect with people on an emotional level. A symbiotic relationship where one cannot flourish without the other. They strive to create a product that embodies their passion for professional wrestling through street fashion. Basically, it's wrestling merchandise that you can wear in public that doesn't make you look like a total nerdy mark. This is great stuff. I've bought a bunch of it myself. I wear it myself quite often. And when you go to buy it, don't forget to use the coupon code HUGHEZY. That's HUGHEZY, all in capital letters, to let them know that you heard about it through me. That's Collar and Elbow. Use the coupon code HUGHEZY. And do not forget to tell your friends, because this is the best merchandise company you're going to find anywhere.
When your celebration of life is prepaid in advance, it becomes a gift from you to your family later, because no one should have to plan for a loss while they're experiencing one. Paying in advance protects your loved ones and gives you the peace of mind you deserve. Let us help you plan every detail with professionalism and compassion. We're your local Dignity Memorial provider. Find us at dignitymemorial.com.
Welcome to Sweet Tea USA, where we know our sweet tea, and we like it sweet. Sweet in the morning to get you through the day, sweet in the evening to put a smile on your face. And McDonald's knows sweet tea too. That's why you can get any size sweet tea for just $1. Plus, with insulated large cups, your drink stays cold longer. Here in Sweet Tea USA, everything is a little sweeter. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal as compared to prior large cup. Welcome to Sweet Tea USA, where we know our sweet tea, and we like it sweet. Sweet in the morning to get you through the day, sweet in the evening to put a smile on your face. And McDonald's knows sweet tea too. That's why you can get any size sweet tea for just $1. Plus, with insulated large cups, your drink stays cold longer. Here in Sweet Tea USA, everything is a little sweeter. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal as compared to prior large cup.
Hello, it's Susie Hello, and you're listening to the new episode, which, get this, is not a re-release of an older, deleted episode. That's right, I've got a new episode, brand new interview for you with the great Earl Skakel. First things first, though, on the previous episodes, I should say, I've had a few complaints from people that says, oh, you've got too many ads. Well, you know what? Tough shit. That's not my fucking fault that I've been lucky enough to get linked up with Joe Feeney, who's been able to help me make money from this podcast. The entire point of the majority of the planet starting these shows is that they hope that it could somehow turn into some sort of financial earner / profitable in any way. So if you've got a problem with that, fuck yourself. I don't care. And I have to say, the people that keep DMing me, I've told you many times, leave it on the YouTube channel, not fucking Facebook, not Instagram, not Twitter, no social media, because I don't reply. And if I haven't replied to literally 57 DMs from one person particularly, that means I'm not going to reply. Get the hint. While I've got you all in a good mood, it is time to speed through the plugs. To see the video version of the interview, go to Hugely Entertainment on YouTube. That's the only place to see the video version. If you're a pro wrestling fan on YouTube and you want to see it, you want to hear it being spoken about by the experts, and I should say, see it, there's a lot of video footage up there too, go to Keep Them 100 Official on YouTube. Alright? I'm at the Hugely on Twitter, at the Hugely on Instagram, and thank you, and the plugs are over. See that? I've sped through the fucking thing. Right, so today's interview is with Earl Skakel. Very funny man, great comedian, and also fantastic podcast host from his show Inappropriate Earl. But he used to host a show, which I'm sure most people may know, with the legendary Roddy Piper. And then of course, obviously, Roddy passed away. We speak about that, we speak about the state of comedy. It's all good stuff. This is a great interview. I'm sure you've read the description on iTunes. The reason why I'm speeding through this intro is because there's the last couple of episodes I've put out that have gone like over an hour long, which I honestly I don't like doing that, especially because I can't put my precious music song picks of the week in it. This interview is about an hour long, so this, I think it's 3-minute intro. It's just going to add, and then my sponsors are going to get placed in too. So without further ado, one of my hilarious Nazi jokes there, welcoming the great Earl Skakel. Earl, hello. Shitty podcast guests are a disease. This next man is the cure. People may know him from stand-up comedy, and any wrestling fans may know him from the legendary Roddy Piper's podcast. The great Earl Skakel. Earl, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Just waking up. It's noon in California, so this is my beginning part of the day where most people are already up 5 or 6 hours.
So what has the California liberals angry today?
Well, let me see today. Probably the homeless. We have a big homeless problem in LA, so it's out of control.
Yeah, they ruined my day too.
But I mean, here it's like, they're everywhere. There's tents everywhere, and it's like a tough thing where you want to balance compassion with, they break the law. So it's like, you want to, obviously we all want everyone to be fed and warm and all that stuff, but it's also like, I want to feel safe when I walk my dog at night.
Yeah, and It's only a matter of time before the advertising companies start buying space on homeless people.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, there's some of these tents in Los Angeles that look like 3-bedroom homes. I mean, they're, they're 2-story. They're like one. There's a very famous concert venue out here called the Hollywood Bowl, and there's a big encampment there. And one guy has a door on his tent. Like, you have to actually knock on I mean, I don't know who would want to go in the tent, but like, he's got a functional home.
I would assume a lovely liberal with a lovely big sandwich.
I mean, yeah, these people who like, I'm kind of in the middle. I want to see them, because a lot of it's a mental health issue, like, but there are a fair amount that they just don't want to get a job, so they panhandle for money. And I asked this one guy, I'm in West Hollywood, and this one guy is, I don't even know if he's homeless, but he panhandles. And I'm like, dude, why don't you get a real job? Like, you're a good looking dude. He's not crazy. He looks like a model. And he's like, bro, I make $100 to $200 a day in cash. I'm not going to make that working at a store in the mall. So, now that's probably a rare example. Most of them, I would say in West Hollywood, are 85% are mentally ill. So I don't expect them to go get a minimum wage job, but it's like becoming a lawless, especially at night. It's like Escape from New York.
Well, as long as no one's getting misgendered, that's the main thing, right?
I mean, that's. I don't see too many mixed gendered homeless people, but I'm sure there are. I mean, especially to the east of me is a homeless area. I guess you'd call it Hollywood, where there's a lot. I'll just say that.
So then it would be the penisless area.
I mean, there's I'll say it this way: whatever you're into is in this area.
Oh, bowling! There we go. Nice. But
like I'm in the gayer area, like like West Hollywood is. It's not a gay exclusive neighborhood, but like it's probably 75% gay. But so most of the homeless here are transients. Because I'm in the middle of like Beverly Hills is to the west of me, and they throw them this way, so they throw them east, and then there's like a Russian Jewish area that's east. They don't want them, so they throw them west. So I'm in the middle, like, so I get them all.
Well, I don't judge. You're all gay in my eyes.
Oh, I don't judge either.
But
it is, in all seriousness, it's a dangerous situation, at night, especially because then they're out looking for food, and they, with the pandemic pretty much over in Los Angeles anyway. I mean, from the standpoint of businesses opening, they know that there's a lot of money here with bars and clubs opening, and so they come here to rob people. And so it's getting pretty wacky in my neighborhood.
Well, speaking of pretty wacky, the first time you came onto my radar was through the Roddy Piper podcast with the legendary, Roddy Piper. It's such a shame that it ended when it did. Well, obviously because Roddy died. Nobody wanted him to die. Oh, nice.
It's autographed, my autographed bubblegum soda.
But it was because I remember when I first heard the podcast, it was kind of shit, frankly. And then as you joined, it started getting really good. It became like funnier, wittier. And then tragically, the worst outcome came from Roddy passing away. But I gotta ask you, during your time, I remember there being, just from reading the dirt sheets, there was some kind of fallout between Roddy Piper and Steve Austin because of something that happened on the podcast. And that's all we ever heard. We never heard what it was. So is there any form of insight that you could give into the Roddy Piper, Steve Austin feud?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was right before I joined the podcast. When I think maybe about 2 to 3 weeks before I came on the podcast. Originally, it was just supposed to be one episode. And then I think Roddy's, both his manager and the producer of the podcast, were like, hey, you and Roddy have good chemistry. Do you want to be the sidekick? So I stepped into that not knowing really what was going on. And the great comic Will Sasso, who was on Mad TV, and I think he played Curly on the Three Stooges, the movie, and like tons of other things. He, I guess, was on the podcast a few weeks before I got there, and he did an impression of Stone Cold that if you listen to it, and I'm sure you could find it on YouTube or old, I don't know what they did with the old episodes, podcast one, which was the network, but I'm sure it could be found. If you closed your eyes and didn't know it was Will Sasso, you would have thought it was Stone Cold. And it was really funny, and it was totally harmless. He didn't reference any of like Stone Cold's personal problems. I think there was something about Deborah, his ex-wife, and him were going at it in terms of allegations about stuff. He didn't say anything about that. And then right when I came on, I think we did, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 episodes. And then we got kicked off podcast one. And I was like, what? The ratings are huge. Like, not because of me, but, you know, he got, I think it was something like between 50,000 and 100,000 listens or downloads, which is a lot. Like my podcast gets, I don't know, maybe 5,000, and that's on a good day. So, you know, to get 10 times that, it's a fair amount of money with ads and sponsors. So it made no sense that we got kicked off. And then we went to the Earwolf Network, which is, I guess, a competing podcast network. And then we got kicked off of that. And I'm like, well, this doesn't make any sense. And Roddy's management team were like, oh, yeah, Stone Cold's. Now, I don't know if he said this or not. This is just what they told me. He's like, yeah, he wasn't too happy with the impression. So he gave podcast one an ultimatum. It's either Roddy or me. And then, you know, Earwolf, I'm sure, was like, well, we've seen your numbers. You can come do it at our network. And so it didn't make sense. We got kicked off of there too. So, and then like Stone Cold, who I never really had a problem with. I don't know the guy. He blocked me on Twitter. So it was like some weird beef him and Piper had. And I think that really helped hasten Roddy's life because, you know, these guys, you know, when you get to Piper's age, I think he was 61 when he died. He had been wrestling literally since the age of 15. That's a lot of punishment, a lot of chair shots, a lot of concussions, a lot, broken bones. So he was tired, man. I mean, he was 61, but his body was literally probably over 100. So a successful podcast was a great way to not have to travel as much and do the autograph signings, which he loved doing, but you still have to go to New York, travel across the country and all that stuff. It's taxing on you at 61, at any age, but especially at 61. So the working plan was for Roddy to just keep doing my podcast, and then he was going to figure it out. And the day he was supposed to come over to start the I guess the new era of Piper's Pit meets Inappropriate Earl. I'm not sure what we were going to call it. probably just inappropriate Earl at the moment. He passed away. So, I'm not saying Stone Cold killed him, but, he didn't help the process, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've always thought that it was strange because, like, with the way cancel culture is, and like Hulk Hogan get in trouble for the tape of the N-word being said, and we all know what that word means, right?
But yeah, unfortunately, we do. It's an awful word, but
unless you're stuck in traffic.
Well, or you're on an all-black cartoon, you get a free pass. But it's just sad. But he was awesome to work with. So I know he really doing the podcast with me just because I could be the bad guy. He was he's 61. His family's got kids. He's a grown man now. They're grown. Colt is a grown man, and his daughters. I think he wanted to just be a dad, interact with his fans when he could, and then I could be the Rick Rude type bad guy, and because I didn't care about working with the WWE or TNA or WCW. WCW wasn't around anymore, but so I would speak my mind. I would be very, very honest. Whereas if you look at most wrestlers, because I've reached out to a few who are in WWE, AEW now, and I'm like, hey, will you come on my podcast? And they all say yeah, because they're fans of my comedy or whatever. But they're like, you can't ask us any wacky questions. We gotta stay employed. So, that's what happens when WWE and AEW, they're really and I guess you could say Ring of Honor. When you only have 3 places that can hire you can't burn a bridge with them. So you got to kind of kiss their ass.
The accusations against Steve Austin from Deborah McMichael, do you believe them?
I mean, I don't know. That's it's a from what I recall, because I didn't really follow the story too much. It was abuse allegations, and I think it's with those type of things, whether it be a wrestler, actors, and their exes, it's a he said she said type situation. It's often in divorces, it gets pretty nasty, and a lot of those things that are said are untrue, and a lot of times they are true. So it's I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, because we don't really know Stone Cold the person or Deborah the person. We know their characters. It's like Roddy. I think most people would think he was an asshole based on his character. But in reality, he was like the nicest guy on earth. I remember when I started working with him, I was like, I used to hate you. And he got sad. He's like, why did you hate me? I'm like, well, I thought you were really a bad guy. It's like when you see Kamala, rest in peace. Let me throw this out at you. So I always do this in any wrestling. But, when you see Kamala walk into the ring, especially in his early years, they would show kids crying because they thought he was literally a cannibal. And by all accounts, he was like the nicest guy on earth. I always, and when it comes to allegations, and I always think both sides should be heard. Obviously she never hit a woman, but she might have made it up, or maybe he hit her. I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing about Roddy Piper is it's well known that Brock Lesnar, he hates wrestling. He just loves the money, and he doesn't give a flying fuck about it. But he was willing to interact with Roddy on TV during one of Roddy's last appearances. And that's just the fact that Lesnar would give him the time of day is a sign that he's like saying, no, I fucking love him.
Oh yeah, I mean Lesnar doesn't really, seems like he enjoys working with a lot of people. So I think that speaks to how nice Roddy was. And I don't blame him for not liking the business. I mean, who would like that business? It's like being the person who issues parking tickets. I don't know if they have they call them meter maids in Los Angeles, where if you don't put enough money in your parking meter, you get a ticket. Like, who would like that job? But people do it, and I'm sure it's not for the money, but in pro wrestling, the lifestyle, you're constantly under pressure to look a certain way, unless you're like your character is the fat guy. So I don't blame Lesnar. They often said that about the Ultimate Warrior, that he didn't like the business. He just wanted the money. It was like, yeah, I mean, the guy looked great. And in that era that he wrestled in, that was what made the most money. So he decided to look like he did, no matter how he got to get that body, whether it be steroids or not. And he didn't put a lot of time into being a great wrestler, but he didn't have to. So I find very few people outside of maybe Stu Hart actually liked the business.
Can I pitch you my idea for a modern 2021 version of Steve Austin?
Sure.
And instead of Stone Cold Steve Austin, he's called Secretly Gay Steve Austin. And he skips to the ring with swinging his waistcoat over his head, but he still get his hot denim pants on, the wee short shorts. He climbs up on the ropes backwards. He instead of crashing 2 beer cans, he has 2 dicks, and he smashes them like this, and he shakes it all over his face. And his finishing move is he picks the opponent up for the tombstone, but he falls backwards and gets pinned every time.
I mean, there's worse ideas that have made it. When I watched, I used to go to this organization called XPW, which was like a very low budget, much more violent version of ECW. So it was a lower budget ECW. Think about that, because ECW had no budget. And they had a gay wrestler named Angel, and his finishing move was he'd somehow overpower you, and instead of going on your back for the pin count, you'd end up on all fours, and he would get behind you and pump you 3 times for the pin. So it was pretty funny, but they really went for it in XPW. Like, they had a team called the West Side N-word, but they spelled it out they had merchandise. Like,
nerds.
Not really. It's a word that rhymes with, oil rigger. But there was kids at these shows, so they had like printed merchandise.
Hang on.
I never say any idea can't be done in the world of wrestling.
So it began with N and ended in R.
ER.
Oh, so it was the West Side Neighbors.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly right. But so when you throw me an idea like that, I'm like, I mean, if XPW was around, they'd still do it.
Sold. But
I mean, their ring announcer dressed in a Hitler outfit and would goose step to the ring, doing the Nazi salute, and like the crowd went nuts. And these shows were completely sold out, usually held at a high school gym, which they probably seat, I don't know, maybe 1,000, and there was probably 1,200 packed in these gyms. And it was just so funny to watch. And the only reason I was going was my hairdresser at the time. Her husband was Sabu's best friend, and Sabu was in XPW, so we'd go watch him. And it was kind of sad to see some of these guys who had big names wrestling in a high school gym. But XPW was most famous for the one match New Jack had, where he tased Vic Grimes on the top of a very shaky scaffold. Like how Vic Grimes didn't die is, and it's a very famous clip. You can just YouTube Vic Grimes, New Jack, and you'll see the clip. I mean, it was unbelievable. I still to this day don't know how Vic Grimes didn't die, or at least break his neck.
Well, I got another a final Roddy Piper question for you, because of course, as I mentioned, I listen to the show all the time. He one time had this bizarre incidents with Pat Patterson, where Roddy said in an interview that Pat Patterson raped him. Now,
Well,
I don't know if he was joking and it bombed, or if he was admitting to some past trauma, whatever. I don't know. But did Roddy ever open up? Not in that way. Did he ever talk to you about the Pat Patterson stuff?
No, and it's funny because I would always make Pat Patterson jokes, not knowing at the time, of the alleged trauma. I mean, I personally think something happened just because there's one interview. It's a shoot interview, which you can find on YouTube. I'm forgetting who did it. And the guy asked Roddy about Pat Patterson, and you could see Roddy's demeanor change instantly. Like, it went from pretty happy in the interview to sunken shoulders, and like all the color got out of his face. So I think there's a reason that Roddy had that reaction. But once again, I don't know. I probably wasn't even born yet, or I was a very early age when that alleged stuff happened. So I think any pro wrestler from the late 70s and 80s, they have a Pat Patterson story. Like Sid had a pretty funny story about Pat picking up on him. And I think the world of pro wrestling is, especially in that era, maybe not so much anymore, is littered with probably closeted gay either wrestlers or people in charge. So it's such a almost homoerotic business in the first place that I'm sure it's ripe for Me Too and cancelable moments.
Yeah, ripe for rape. But of course,
well, yeah, I mean, it really is.
Yeah, but of course,
especially Pat Patterson.
Oh yeah,
but of course, Pat Patterson, was in charge of a lot of things. So if you were willing to, play ball with him and give him whatever he wanted, you could have a better spot on the card. I think they say that's why certain wrestlers, there were certain wrestlers that were always on TV, and you're like, well, why is this person always on? And, you can leave it to your own imagination. Why?
Did you ever hear the story of Pat Patterson breaking Howard Finkel's leg?
No. I imagine that wouldn't be hard to do, given Howard Finkel wasn't the biggest guy.
It was one of those things that Patterson was doing an in-office prank where he sent out a fake memo to people saying, hey, everyone, I'm having a Super Bowl party, but whatever you do, don't invite Howard Finkel. And but of course, he sent it to Howard Finkel on purpose, just as a prank. But apparently, Howard took it really personally. And Vince said to him, "Hey, you need to go in and apologize to him, pal." So Patterson went into the room to say sorry, to give him a hug. But whatever way he hugged him, all his weight went on Finkel, and it broke one of his legs.
Well, he's a pretty big guy. I mean, people kind of forget Pat Patterson was like a legit wrestler, in his era. So I'm sure even as an older guy, he was pretty powerful. So, I don't know how the guy is in the Hall of Fame, given the allegations that are against him, but that's the world of wrestling.
Well, speaking of which, I have one final wrestling-related question before we do, the man stuff.
But
Just a few weeks ago, or a few years ago, I remember hearing you on a Chad Zumach podcast, and
yes.
you spoke about how you once auditioned or whatever to be a WWE writer.
Yes.
Just pretty recently, over the last 3 weeks, there's a lady called Kenise Mobley. Do you know this story?
I don't. I'm not. I'm so into my own bubble. I don't know a lot of outside stories.
Well, Kenise Mobley was hired to be a WWE writer. She went on a podcast called Asian Not Asian, which is an Earwolf podcast.
Right.
In this interview, she spoke about how she didn't watch wrestling, didn't know who anybody was, and she got Bobby Lashley's name wrong. So she came in and completely fucked up her whole career within 3 days. So I was just wondering, as a fan slash comedian slash someone who once tried to get that job, what's your take on that sort of person?
Well, I mean, I think they should have fans be the writers because they know the product the best. Like my storyline with Sting, I think, just as an example, would have been so much better than what they did. Because I thought we're just using this because I realized it was 6-7 years ago, just as an example of how the WWE screwed up. Whereas a knowledgeable fan, and there's a lot of idiot fans who like don't get it, but like I'm such a fan of the business that I would give respectful storylines. WWE, they clearly wanted Sting to come in so they could job him out and say, no WCW wrestler was ever better than any of our guys. And he was the only guy to never come over. So it was a big statement for them to do this to him. They have him lose to Triple H at WrestleMania, which made no sense at all because, Triple H is so well established in that world that if he would have lost to Sting, it would have been so much better business because every kid in that arena and watching on TV would have been like, hey, who's that guy who just beat Triple H? We want his t-shirt. We want his mask, the outfit, the dolls. And instead he lost to Triple H, and then people automatically lost interest in him. It's like, well, who's that old guy with the makeup running down his face? They didn't build him up at all, which, I'm 52. So like I grew up watching Sting in his prime, late 80s into the 90s and beyond. But most of the WWE crowd, they didn't know who he was. Like, which is crazy to say that, but like, I don't think many people watched him in TNA for 13 years, and they weren't old enough to watch him in WCW in his prime. So they literally had virtually no clue as to who this guy is. So what they should have done is you have him debut and you have him against, say, a Dolph Ziggler type, someone who's popular and can take the bumps and do not all, but most of the hard work. I mean, let's be honest, Sting was 56 at the time. He probably, even though he's in great physical shape, he probably, 56 for a pro wrestler is like 100. So you have him beat, say Dolph Ziggler, maybe one more mid-card name. And then you put him in a program with Randy Orton, where Randy Orton revives the Legend Killer gimmick. And you have him in the ring, and he's cutting a promo going, I beat Hogan, I beat The Rock, I beat Stone Cold, I beat Kurt Angle, I beat The Undertaker, I beat them all. And then Sting, they probably wouldn't have him drop down from the ceiling because of Owen Hart. But that would be great if they did. Or he comes up from the ring and goes, you didn't beat me. And then that's it. You have him beat Orton. And then you have him lose to The Undertaker. Like, he was never going to beat The Undertaker You know, that's Vince's guy. So you haven't beat Orton, you beat Ziggler, so he popular with the WWE crowd, and then you haven't lose to the Undertaker. And then that's it. Everyone's happy. So, you know, and people want his T-shirts and all the other, you know, the DVDs and all that stuff. Instead, you know, he loses to Triple H, he loses to Seth Rollins, and then I think his only win in WWE was a meaningless win against the Big Show, who he had beaten 100 times in WCW. So that win meant nothing. So it just, they needed someone like me to go, this is how it should be done, and make sure that everyone knows it's about the money. You guys are going to make a lot more money if you build Sting up, get him some wins, and portray him as this, even though he's 56 at the time, like a badass. Instead, you just ruined his character within one match. Like, it was over. Like, there's nothing they could have done to fix it. So that's where I think they need a fan who knows what they're doing. You know, because now it's just a bunch of yes people, the Triple H and Vince McMahon, and I'm sure Vince McMahon at this point is checked out. I mean, he's got, what is he, 70 or something? And so it's just like AEW. I don't know who their writers are, but the storylines are already better. Like, because you're invested in the character. So, you know, that's where I wish they would let some fans write.
Yeah, I've heard that it was Goldberg and The Rock who fucked up the whole Sting thing, because WWE initially wanted Goldberg was going to make the save after Sting got jumped by DX. Sting was going to win, and then also The Rock wasn't confirmed for that. Was it Mania 31?
I think it was 32.
Well, he was the year after. The Rock and Rishi were supposed to wrestle Stephanie and fucking what's his name, Triple H. But the Rock's sudden appearance meant, okay, but we need Triple H to win so that they can set up this angle for later on in the show, and it's just all
Well, it just also, if you remember, in that WrestleMania, like 20 minutes later, Triple H is already in another angle with Ronda Rousey, and he's in the suit looking great. He looked like he just got out of a beauty salon. So it's like, and then Sting didn't appear for the rest of that WrestleMania, making him look weak. And even the storyline, you know, in the Sting Triple H match, still to this day makes no sense that the NWO came down and saved Sting when they were never aligned for one day. You know, the black and white.
Right.
I'm not talking about the other offshoots. I'm talking Hogan, Hall, and Nash.
The Wolfpack.
So, yeah, why? Yeah, I'm not counting the Wolfpack and all that crap. So why would three guys who battled Sting for literally 2 straight years all of a sudden save him? And then when DX, I almost said DMX, rest in peace. When DX came down to fight the NWO, it's like, well, wait a minute. Kevin Nash just inducted Shawn Michaels into the Hall of Fame like 24 hours ago. Now they're enemies. Like, I think real wrestling fans, obviously, we all know it's fake and are scripted. I don't like saying fake, but it's predetermined, the outcomes. But we still like a little bit of realism. Like, you know, like when I watched the movie Predator, and I don't mean the one with Harvey Weinstein, but the one with Schwarzenegger. I know there's not an actual alien in the jungle killing people, but I still like a storyline to be like, oh, okay, this could happen, you know? So I think that's what wrestling, like real wrestling fans want, like, you know, but they just, the storylines. I tried watching WWE last night. It was awful. Like, you know, it was just like, I don't care who wins. I don't care who loses. The promos are awful. Whereas in AEW, like that, the main bad guy, MJF, that guy's great. Like he brings you back to the Piper era where you really hate the guy. So, and Jericho loses to him a fair amount of times because he realizes that's good for business. Like, because now everyone hates MJF because he's beating up on a popular character in Jericho. So people buy the t-shirts and whatever merchandise MJF has. And so you're invested in the inner circle against MJF's group. And so they have good writers. I have a feeling they, without knowing this for sure, have people who are fans, but maybe celebrity fans who are like, hey, let me help you write good ideas.
Well, speaking of good writers, there's I also know the real reason why you wanted to do this interview with me, because you're in the comedy business. Ireland's just announced 2 giant comedy shows from a comedy titan who's coming here very soon. The one and only, the king of comedy, the funniest man of all time, Jeremy Piven.
Oh.
My sides are already getting loose. So I've got to ask you, for someone who's been doing stand-up for quite a while, for Jeremy Piven to just go from not being able to get acting work anymore to suddenly becoming an international comedian that's playing these big venues, how does that make you feel?
I mean, I think the only way I can describe how that makes me feel is if, like, I got Me Too'd out of stand-up comedy and I started taking acting gigs from Jeremy Piven. Like, it's like one time at the Comedy Store, and this has nothing to do with Jeremy Piven, but John Mayer wanted to do stand-up, and he's a very nice guy, and he went up, and he didn't do very well, to be honest with you. And he went up to me after and it's like, Earl, what did you think of my stand-up? And I'm like, well, John, how would you feel if I interrupted one of your concerts and played guitar bad? And he kind of looked at me like, okay, I get you. So, I mean, I just stand up. I don't know why everyone thinks they can do it, because very few people can, because it's a lot of work, and so I think stand-up seems to be the last gap before you give up on your other career, whether you're a sports figure, a pro wrestler. I mean, Roddy would go on stage, but he would never do jokes. He would do like wrestling stories. So he, I think, understood it better than anyone, along with Jake the Snake Roberts, who is the best storyteller I've ever heard in my life. I opened up for him once in Los Angeles, and like usually after I perform, I leave or maybe, I don't know, talk to other comics in the back or whatever. But I was fixated on his stories. So in terms of Jeremy Piven, I just he's not doing comedy because he likes to do it. He's doing it because he has to do it. So I'm not a fan, but it's free country, free world, I guess, now if he's going to Ireland.
Yeah, no, those fucking wigs don't come for free. He needs to work.
Yeah, well, I think that, I mean, I understand why he gets booked. He's a pretty big celebrity. So, I think club owners, and he wouldn't play arenas, but in Ireland, he might play a small theater. They don't care if you're funny. They really don't. They just want the tickets sold. Because once the tickets are sold, they have your money. So hopefully the act, whoever it is funny enough to get people to come back. But if they can get your money once in a 2,000-3,000 seater, that's a lot of money for someone.
Well, speaking of big comedians on the comeback, recently freed neighbor Bill Cosby. The big rumor is that he's about to go on, that he's planning to announce a tour, which is
I mean, it's not really. I mean, nothing surprises me in stand-up. I know many comics who would spread their legs faster than Carl Lewis out of the blocks to open for Bill Cosby. So that's the saddest thing, is to see the people who, oh, Bill Cosby's a rapist, he's this, he's that. Oh, but I can open for him? Sure. It's like, have a fucking soul. But I think I read somewhere yesterday that the Cellar in New York said no. So shout out to the Cellar in New York for having a spine.
Yeah, but they've gotten so woke in New York, they're probably going to have to sell him.
Well, I mean, some club will say, yes, do it at our club, because the money, he'll sell out, which is crazy to me. I mean, it's not like there was just one or two women who said, he did this to me. There were 60. They all ain't lying. So, but, that's the business. If there's money to be made, people will overlook 60 victims saying he assaulted me in some capacity if they can sell out their club. Come on in, Mr. Cosby.
Yeah, and of course we're both disgusted by it, of course. But if Bill Cosby wants to come on the new Earl Skakel and Husey show, I'm up for it. Oh,
I would interview him, but I don't think he'd come on. Because I would go after him. I'm only blocked on Twitter by, I think, two people. Bill Cosby and Steve Austin. So, shout out to O.J. Simpson for me hammering him for being a double murderer, and he still hasn't blocked me. I'll give him that. I'll give O.J. that. He's got some class.
But to be fair, O.J. doesn't have time to block you because he's out looking for the real killer.
Yeah, on a golf course. The real killer must have played golf for a long time. So
yeah, Bill Cosby doesn't come on podcasts. He only comes on Unconscious Women.
Well, I mean, allegedly. Let's throw that out there. We have no proof.
Exactly. I'll bleep this for YouTube. I'll edit it to make it.
That's the crazy thing, though, is like people still play golf with OJ. It's like, don't you know this guy probably killed two people? Doesn't that bother you at all? But don't you? I see it in the stand-up world plenty of times with scummy comics. Don't you know this guy is abusive towards women? Oh, but you can open for him? Okay.
Yeah, but enough about Arsenio Hall.
I never heard anything about Arsenio, but I don't put anything past anyone,
Yeah, those neighbors. But I gotta ask you about comedy roast in PC time, because I used to watch the Comedy Central roasts, and then as soon as Trump was president, they changed into it being, let's not make hilarious jokes, let's do these pretty brutal insults. And I didn't like it, and not that I'm a Trump fan, I can't vote for him, but even though I would, because he's so handsome. But with the comedy roast, is it hard to do roasts in these politically correct times?
I mean, it depends who you are. I'm not a big enough comic to get canceled, so for me, I wouldn't have too much of a problem. I did a roast, I think 2 years ago, about a famous hockey player, Shane Doan, who played 21 years for the Winnipeg Jets / Arizona Coyotes. They moved. So he's like one of the few hockey players to ever play for just one team. And I went pretty hard on him. And there's a lot of famous hockey players in the room. And I mean, I crossed the line, but it was funny. So I think that ultimately gets you a pass if it's funny. People will overlook most PC subjects, like if it's a race joke, if it's a gay themed joke, you can survive, but it has to be really funny. So, roasting is, it's a skill set, because roasting is, and it gets compared a lot to roast battle, you know, and it's a big mistake because roasting, you're paying tribute to someone. You know, like if they ever did the roast of, say, Hulk Hogan, you know, you're gonna rip the guy for the steroids and the tan and the shitty movies and you know how he looks, you know, the bandana and you know, obviously what he said, you know, in the phone call to his daughter, but the sex tape. But at the end of it, you're gonna say, "Hey, man, you're something to the effect of, I watched you as a kid. You're like the Wayne Gretzky of pro wrestling. I wish I had your career, your money, blah, blah, blah." You know, whereas roast battle is that's a different genre of roasting. It's not really roasting. It's just bullying, you know, call someone fat before they call me old. That's not really roasting, you know, but I was pretty good at it.
And just before we wrap up here, I watched a pretty recent episode of, well, it was on the Chad Zumark YouTube channel. Right. And it was you and Chad interviewing the legendary Brian Thompson.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons why I couldn't wait to try and get interviewing you. Brian Thompson, of course, played the Night Stalker in genuinely one of my favorite ever films, Cobra. And if you noticed in the intro, I said that a shitty podcast, gas or disease, this man is the cure. That, of course, is a reference to Cobra. So let's talk Cobra. You seen that in the cinema in the 80s?
Yes, I actually saw. It's funny how you can remember something that's almost 40 years ago. I saw it in Westwood, which was a place in Los Angeles that people back in that era, the 80s, would go to see movies. You know, this is before, obviously, Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu, and, you know, most people barely had cable TV. So if you wanted to see a current movie, you had to actually go out to a theater. I saw a double feature of Raw Deal and Cobra, which, yeah, it's great. I mean, Raw Deal is kind of a forgotten Schwarzenegger film because he did it, I think he did it in between, I think he did it in between Terminator and Predator. It was done very fast. I think he owed a studio one more film, and I'm not getting the story completely right, but he wanted to do Total Recall. So they said, well, if you do this movie, we'll make it happen. And then Cobra came on after Raw Deal. And it's an interesting, the whole movie is a very interesting story because it was the original script for Beverly Hills Cop. I mean, Stallone was going to be Beverly Hills Cop. And he got the script. And he was like, well, I'm not that, I don't know exactly what he said, but I think he said something to the effect of, well, this is almost a comedy. I'm not that funny. Let's make it more violent. So the original cut of Cobra, even though Brian E. Thompson kind of disputed this, but I've heard it from a lot of people, was like 3 hours. It was incredibly violent. It got an X rating. Which is why, and I brought it up to Brian Thompson in the interview, like even for an hour and a half movie, which was the finished cut, the theater cut, I should say, the bad guy wasn't in it that much. He was in it for, like, if you go back and watch Cobra, he's in it for maybe 12 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. And there's a lot of scenes, even though Brian Thompson said he does not recall any scenes that were left out of his. I think there clearly were, because there was like one scene where he's sharpening the knife and then it just cuts. Like, it felt like it was the beginning of a longer scene. And then, so there was some random, and then there's a couple scenes. There's one scene where they show all the Night Slashers, followers, they're clanking the axes. but it kind of didn't make any sense. It was just like a random, well, we need to fill in 1 minute, so let's put that in. It was kind of a mishmash collection of scenes that I think Stallone, I think he said to the editors, just put me in it as much as possible. And obviously, he's a big star now, but back then was the peak of his, Rocky 4, I think, was huge, and
Rambo 2.
Rambo 2, which was 85, I want to say. So he went from Rocky 3, Rambo 2, Rocky 4. So he was gigantic. So it makes sense putting him in a lot, but I thought it could have been a better movie. You didn't really hate the bad guy because he wasn't in it that much. But I thought Brian Thompson did as good as he could have given what they gave him.
But if you watch the trailer for Cobra, there's a lot of scenes in the trailer that aren't in the film. And I've heard that there was a scene where it's when Stallone, when Marion Cobretti's out interviewing people going, hey, what are you doing today? He discovered that it's a cult, that it's not just it's one guy. It's like, and they all, and that's, but then it was put into that montage of Angel in the City.
Right.
Yeah. So,
I don't know. It just seemed like a very choppy finished product for the theater. And obviously I'm not saying I expect them to put a 3-hour action movie out. That's probably not doable. I think most people who watch action movies, they just want a quick, fun, story that they can follow with a lot of guns and violence. I just think it could have been a little more interesting. And not that any Stallone movie from the mid-'80s is considered Shakespearean, but I always think an action movie or a TV show is good when you're invested. It almost goes to wrestling, where you're invested in both sides. You root for the good guy, but you almost kind of root for the bad guy too. Like you watch, say, Sons of Anarchy. That show worked in a lot of ways because you rooted for the bad guys and the good guys, which were almost blurred. What were the Sons of bad? Were they the bad guy or the good guys?
Yeah. Just a quick rant about the Sons of Anarchy. Season 3 was set in Belfast.
Yes.
They might as well have set it in the fucking Mars. It was so full of shit. There was a British flag in the IRA hangout.
Yeah, that what's as an American, that stuff I never would have said, oh, that flag doesn't. But I liked season 3 from the standpoint of one of my favorite actors, Titus Welliver, who is Bosch. In America, it's a pretty big show on Amazon Prime. He played the IRA gun runner, so I liked him because he did a good job.
He did to the Irish accent what Bill Cosby allegedly did to all those women.
See, to me, I thought it was good, but my cousins are Irish, but he's such a good actor that I forgave him for any technical deficiencies in his accent, but it's other shows too, like Bosch, is a great show because he's such a good actor, but it's also they always have good bad guys. Animal Kingdom is another show I love. It's very Sons of Anarchy like, where you don't know if the family that's featured in the story, you don't know if they're really good guys or bad guys. So whoever they go up against, usually cops, you're invested in both characters. So that's why I think in Cobra, I just wish Brian was in it a little more, so you hated him that much more.
But it's weird to hear that that they would have such a longer cut that Stallone would have cut down because he wrote the fucking thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think when you're in the middle of a movie, you don't really think about, especially if you're Stallone, where you're pretty much given carte blanche. You know, mid '80s Stallone could pretty much get away with anything. I mean, for God's sakes, he did a 2-hour movie about arm wrestling. So that's how much power he had. I think the studio, they knew they were going to make money no matter what he did, whether it was a good film or a bad film. So yeah, make what you want. There's really no budget for you. So I could see them shooting a lot of excess scenes and then just chopping it. And, you know, but I would still love to, you know, like one of my favorite Al Pacino movies, and it's one of his lesser known movies, is Cruisin', which was a movie in 1980 that there's a gay serial killer in the New York gay neighborhood. So Al Pacino goes undercover as a gay patron of the clubs and stuff. And it was such a, now this is 1980, so you gotta, it's just a different era. You know, now you could make that movie and show pretty graphic stuff. But there was 40 minutes that they couldn't show because it was just too graphic. It was too sexually charged. So I think every movie pretty much has, I would guess, at least a half hour of scenes that they, you know, they just have to cut out because of time issues.
But it's typical of Stallone's ego, because I interviewed this guy called Stephen E. D'Souza. He wrote like Die Hard, and he also wrote the original draft for Judge Dredd, but Stallone had put in his contract that he could do a rewrite. And apparently on the very first day of shooting, despite the fact that Stallone rewrote it, he goes, "Hey, the script, this ain't working." And it's like, you fucking wrote it. So they had to redo it on the spot and spend all this money in the budget, and that's sly.
I mean, yeah, I think it, you know, depends on who the actor is. I mean, certain actors have that power to say, no, this ain't happening. And so then you're like, well, it should happen, because and it, once again, it almost goes back to wrestling storylines, that, you know, what should happen often doesn't, because one person doesn't want to be the team player and they want to look good. You know, that's why some movies with bad guys and good guys don't work, because the bad guy wants to be the star too. But you know, really, it should be the good guy winning at the end. Which is why I think what makes Rocky such a great movie, the first Rocky, was the bad guy won.
Yeah.
You know, Apollo Creed. So you were interested in the sequel because you want to see the good guy win. And so, but you know, it's so political when you're making a film or a TV show that you know, a lot of good ideas get not the best results because ego.
Well, speaking of ego, speaking of sequels, Stallone has announced that the Cobra 2 is happening as a TV show.
I mean, I don't think it depends on the network. I think the only way that would work is if it was on FX, because FX really goes for it. You know, that's why Sons of Anarchy was 7 seasons. That's why The Mayans is now coming upon, I think, 4 seasons. The Shield, which was Kurt Sutter's show before Sons, that went, I think, 6 seasons. And the storylines are pretty graphic. I mean, I think with Cobra, it wouldn't work on ABC or CBS, NBC, because it, you know, it's a violent character. So I think that you'd have to maybe HBO Max, something of that nature. Like, you'd have to have a certain amount of freedom for it to work in 2021. But also, you know, it's hard. Like, to me, what made Cobra such a great film, Predator as well, is that there was no shitty CGI in it. You know, it was just, you know, mid-level acting, but the action scenes were realistic because they were actual fight scenes. You know, today, like, you watch the Fast and Furious movies, it's like a video game. I didn't like Creed 2, even though I was invested in the storyline, because, you know, Apollo's kid fighting Drago's kid, you know, okay. But I watched it in the theater, and it was just like, this is like a video game. It's not even realistic.
Yeah, to me, the Creed films became more of like watching somebody's Instagram page instead of a film, because it was like, right, how can we show off these back muscles? How can we show off these, we call them lats or whatever the fuck? It came all about showing off the body instead of what's story, because there really wasn't a story.
I mean, I guess the technical version of the story was, you know, Apollo Creed's kid wanting revenge for his father's death. But, you know, I think the problem is, and of course with Netflix and cable, you can just go back and watch Rocky IV and kind of get an idea of what the revenge is about. But like, kids today aren't going to go back and watch Rocky IV. So I think when you do essentially a loose sequel, this was basically a sequel to Rocky IV, but that's fucking 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to kids watching it.
Yeah, and Rocky IV, the director's cut is coming out in November.
Yeah, I mean, that might help, but, you know, now it's like, I would have put the director's cut out before Creed 2. And so then you get the young kids, you know, and when I say kids, I mean, you know, 15 to 30, you know, who weren't alive. You know, really, you could go 15 to 45. You know, 45-year-old guy or woman was, you know, 5 years old back when Rocky IV came out. They probably didn't see the movie. So I think that's the big problem when you do, you know, sequels or prequels to movies from so long ago. Kids are only going to see the latest product, you know.
Well, speaking of seeing stuff today, Earl, we've spoken about Roddy Piper, Stallone. We've talked about Jeremy Piven, the funniest man alive. We've got to make jokes about race, rape, homosexuality. We've ticked all the boxes. I'm so glad I get to speak to you. I've been a fan of you for fucking years.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to plug to these absolute classless pieces of shit that listen to this shit sandwich that I make?
I mean, really, the only thing I have to plug that's currently on the air is my cartoon, The Jellies, which is on 3 networks, actually. So there's no excuse to not watch this. It's on Adult Swim. It's on the Cartoon Network and HBO Max. So, and all these, I think you can stream them for free. HBO Max, you might have to pay for that, but I'm not sure. But everyone, HBO Max, a lot of people don't realize they already have it, you know, because it's included in your, if you have HBO, I think it's included. So, you know, I'm the only white guy on the show. I play the dad, Barry Jelly. So it's unlikely the show's coming back, but if enough people watch it, you know, Bob's Burgers was gone for 2 years and people thought it was done. So, you know, I don't think people realize the power they have. If you make a show popular, they'll bring it back. And outside of that, you know, I'm just Earl Skakel. I'll spell it EARL SKAKEL on all social media. So just follow me. You know, I'm usually active the most on Instagram and Twitter. Anything that's happening in my life, I put up there first. So
there you go.
Thank you, dude. This was fun.
It's been great to talk to you, and you have a great day, and watch out for them dirty homeless bastards.
I got to go walk my German Shepherd right now, so I'll probably run into at least 5 of them.
Okay, thank you, Earl. Do not forget to check out the video version on YouTube. He really did not seem to give two fucks about what I had to say. But hey, that's life, and that really is how most people are with me. As I mentioned many times before, it's the summer. It's too warm to be stuck in the house. It's too boring to be stuck in the house. The lockdown's over. We can go to the cinema. We can go to the pub. We can go to parties. We can have people over. We can do all kinds of shit. I do not care to podcast. I'll still do a minimum of 2 a month, but what can you do? But anyway, thank you for listening, and it's Tuesday. Bye.
When your celebration of life is prepaid in advance, it becomes a gift from you to your family later, because no one should have to plan for a loss while they're experiencing one. Paying in advance protects your loved ones and gives you the peace of mind you deserve. Let us help you plan every detail with professionalism and compassion. We're your local Dignity Memorial provider. Find us at dignitymemorial.com.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.